Hi students, and welcome to today's lesson. I'm Ms. Bushnell. Today we will explore the question, why does the sun look different from other stars? Are you ready? Grab your pencil and your science journal and let's get started. Look at these two photographs of the sky. Now, closely observe the objects in the sky in each of these photographs. How are the objects different? Well, the object in the first photograph is the sun, and the objects in the second photograph are stars. Do you notice that the sun is bigger and brighter than the stars? I noticed that too. How are the objects similar? All the objects are in the sky. And even though the sun is brighter than the stars, both the sun and the stars are bright. The sun and the stars look very different in the sky, but the sun is also a star. In this lesson, we will learn more about the sun and other stars as we explore the question, why does the sun look different from other stars? Let's draw what we observed in the photographs. First, let's draw the sun. The sun looked like a circle in the first photograph, so let's draw a large circle to represent the sun, with the lines coming out of the circle to show that the light from the sun is very bright. Now, let's draw the other stars in the second photograph. We can draw two small circles to represent the brightest stars in the photograph. And we can even draw a few smaller circles to represent some of the other stars that we can see. Why do you think the sun might look different from other stars in the sky? Do you think the sun is a lot bigger than the other stars? Or do you think the other stars are far away? What do we need to find out to be able to answer our question? We need to know how big the sun and other stars are. We also need to know how far away from Earth they are. Let's look more closely at this photograph of the stars in the night sky. The star in this photograph is called Alpha Centauri A. We can study this diagram to learn more about the sun and Alpha Centauri A. How is this diagram different from the pictures we drew of the sun and other stars? Do you notice that the diagram shows the sun, the star, and Earth? But our pictures showed only the sun and other stars. And we drew the sun much bigger than the stars. But in the diagram, the sun is a little bit smaller than Alpha Centauri A. The diagram represents what the objects might look like from space. But we drew pictures showing what the sun and other stars look like from Earth. When we view space objects in the sky, we can only see what the objects look like from where we are on Earth. We can use diagrams to help us understand how objects might look if we could view them from space. This diagram shows how the size of the sun, Earth, and Alpha Centauri A compare. The diagram also shows that these objects are different distances from one another. What similarities do you notice between the sun and Alpha Centauri A? Well, they are both stars, and they are both made of gas. What else do you notice? Look, both the sun and Alpha Centauri A are much bigger than Earth. What differences do you notice between the sun and Alpha Centauri A? Do you notice that the sun is much closer to Earth than Alpha Centauri A? I also notice that Alpha Centauri A is a little bigger than the sun. Remember, we are exploring the question, why does the sun look different from other stars? Did you find any information in the diagram that might explain why the sun looks much bigger and brighter in the sky than Alpha Centauri A? In the diagram, Alpha Centauri A is a little bigger than the sun, and they are both made of gas. But wait, maybe the sun looks bigger because it is closer to Earth. Let's investigate whether distance from an object can affect how big or small the object appears. Let's look at a cutout of the sun and a cutout of Alpha Centauri A. Remember, we noticed that Alpha Centauri A is a little bigger than the sun. How can we use these cutouts to investigate whether distance affects how big or small a star looks from Earth? I have an idea. Let's place the cutouts at different distances from us. We will look at the cutouts through this viewfinder. Looking through the viewfinder will represent looking at the stars from Earth. So we will place the sun cutout about 75 centimeters away from the viewfinder, and we will place the Alpha Centauri A cutout about 225 centimeters away from the viewfinder because it is farther away. Let's observe the sun first. The sun takes up almost the entire viewfinder. Let's draw our observations. The outline of the center box represents the outline of the viewfinder. We can draw a large circle to represent the sun. Let's also write that the sun is viewed from about 75 centimeters away. Now let's observe Alpha Centauri A. What do you notice? Wow, Alpha Centauri A looks very small. Let's draw our observation. We can draw a small circle to represent Alpha Centauri A. And let's write that Alpha Centauri A is viewed from about 225 centimeters away. When the Alpha Centauri A and Sun cutouts are the same distance from us, we can see that the Alpha Centauri A cutout is slightly larger than the Sun cutout. But what did you notice when we observed the star cutouts at different distances? When the Alpha Centauri A cutout is farther away than the Sun cutout, the Alpha Centauri A cutout looks smaller than the Sun cutout. The closer an object is to an observer, the larger it appears. The sun is much closer to Earth than Alpha Centauri A, which makes the sun appear larger in the sky. Let's look again at the photograph of Alpha Centauri A. Do you think other stars are close to or far away from Earth? This star looks very similar in size to Alpha Centauri A. Do you think this star is a similar distance away from Earth? Maybe. And I see some very tiny stars in the photograph. Do you see them too? Maybe those stars are even farther away from Earth than Alpha Centauri A. Alpha Centauri A is one of the stars closest to Earth, but it is still so far away that it appears small and dim in the sky when compared to the sun. Other stars are much farther from Earth, so they appear even smaller and dimmer in the sky than Alpha Centauri A. Would an eclipse of Alpha Centauri A have the same effects on Earth as an eclipse of the sun? I don't think so. Do you? Alpha Centauri A is too far away for an eclipse to have the same effects on Earth as an eclipse of the sun. The light from Alpha Centauri A does not create daylight on Earth, and the heat from Alpha Centauri A does not heat up Earth. Remember, we have been exploring the question, why does the sun look different from other stars? Let's look at the drawings of our initial observations of the sun and other stars in the sky. Your first task after this lesson will be to write an explanation for why the sun looks different from other stars when viewed from Earth. How can we use what we learned today to update our class chart about the sun? Let's write, the sun is a star composed of gases and it is closer to Earth than other stars. Your second task after this lesson will be to update this chart. Let's look at our class question chart. Can we answer any of these questions? I don't think we can. We have learned more about the sun, but we do not have enough information to answer our questions about solar eclipses. In fact, I have a few more questions. Do you? Maybe you wonder, how far away are other objects in space? Or what objects in space are big enough to block the sun? Let's add those questions to our chart. The title of our class question chart is How Can We Explain a Solar Eclipse? Which questions on the class question chart will best help us answer this question? Do you think we need to know what blocks sunlight during a solar eclipse? I agree. We should find out what objects in space are big enough to block the sun. In our next few lessons, we will investigate some of these questions as we continue to build our knowledge about solar eclipses. Let's review your tasks for today. First, respond to the question about the view of the sun and the stars from Earth. Second, update the chart.